guys, welcome to a very exciting episode of the Penny Lane podcast with Jason Tartick. Ellis is here for his very first intro. Hi, Ellis.
Hi, Penny.
Hi. Can you give us Jason's stats? Tell us about his podcast, his book.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about this in the pre-show, and he has a podcast called Trading Secrets. And interestingly enough, he actually interviewed one of my biggest role models when I was a young man, Rob Dyrdek. So apparently that's the best episode. So I'm gonna listen to it after this. And another thing is, he released a book called Restart Roadmap, Rewire, and Reset Your Career. And it's interesting. I gave him credit on the podcast about his timing release, because I think a lot of people are going through career changes right now, especially after the pandemic. And I think it would be a really good asset to people to read. And we're going to do a giveaway with the books. And some lucky viewers are going to get a secret book from me with my signature in it and a secret note. If you find a secret note, they'll be surprised. I don't know what it is.
Oh, man. This is going to go viral.
Yes, it might go mega viral.
Yeah, totally. We've got several books to give away, so watch out for that. Should I sign one?
Yeah, you gotta sign one, yeah.
Oh, okay. This is a thing now. We're doing a thing. Anyway, Jason was a fabulous interview. I'm so impressed with him. So genuine, so authentic. Those might be the same words. And refreshing. I loved it. Alice, could you tell I loved it?
Yeah, if you watch YouTube version, yeah, he'll definitely see how much he loved it.
Well,
a little starstruck, but he was a genuinely just good dude all the way around. You could tell he's authentic, and he genuinely just wants to help people. And you could really get that vibe from him, even pre and post show, just having conversations with him. So
totally. So for those of you who follow me on Instagram, which you wouldn't have. No one knows this. But on my Instagram, I would do live watches of The Bachelor every Monday, Bachelor, Bachelorette, and put my commentary in there. It's really how I got a lot of my Instagram followers. But I wanted to have Jason on, and just to be fully honest with you, I didn't know that much about Jason other than he's engaged to Caitlin Bristow, who is my favorite contestant on The Bachelorette. So that's how I learned of him. And then he came even more into my orbit because he interviewed our good friend Hugh Henney, who is that's certainly the best episode of his podcast, Alice. Well, we need to
Hugh and I are friends now. He's my buddy.
And he was on Penny's Going in Raw. So I thought, well, if they can interview, actually, I wanted to be on their podcast with him because I was so starstruck. But look how it turned out. We got him ourselves. And aren't we lucky? Because that was awesome.
That was awesome. And even if it's not trading related, I'm sure you'll learn a couple things from this book. Just the whole entrepreneurial mindset that I think a lot of people are going through. I think it's a great value. Definitely one for the shelves. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to read it and give it away, but yeah.
All right, guys. I can't wait for you to listen to this episode, and be sure you follow Jason, buy his book, and stay tuned for the giveaway we're going to do, because it's going to be sweet.
Also, 5 stars on Spotify and Apple. Don't forget.
Please. It's important, guys. That's the biggest way you can pay us back for... Not pay us back. What a terrible thing. If you enjoy the podcast and want to help us grow, we would love a 5-star review on Apple. And if you want to follow us on YouTube, very helpful. We love you guys. Enjoy the app. This episode is brought to you by Penny's Going in Raw.
The stock market is hotter than ever right now, and traders are taking advantage. But what does that mean for the people who still haven't started trading? The market can be a little intimidating at first, but you don't have to be alone in the learning experience. We at the Penny's Going in Raw podcast are here to help you. I'm Dan, and with my co-host Hugh Henney, we make the stock market a fun but informative experience for our listeners. We offer knowledge for all levels of traders, from beginners to those who do it full time. On PGIR, we discuss up-to-date news about the stock market and interview other traders who all started out just like us and made it big. You'll hear from Hugh and other multi-millionaire traders, founders and CEOs of companies, FinTwit superstars, and even professional athletes. Have you ever thought about investing your hard-earned cash but don't know where to start? Do you have money just sitting in your savings account collecting dust? We were all there once too. Listen to Penny's Going in Raw on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Jason, hi. Welcome to the Penny Lane podcast.
Penny Lane, thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
Of course. And Ellis, thank you for joining us.
Yep. Already talked about hair products, so we're good to go.
You are, as Shrek would say, quite the onion. Ellis, you've got you're a hair care expert. I just am learning things about you on the reg.
I'm a mysterious person,
Yeah. So, and I also was just saying to Jason how jealous I was of Dan and Hugh when you got to go on Penny's Going in Raw.
Yes, it was such a pleasure to go on that show, and it's fun to come on your show. I mean, those are two great guys doing good things, and it's exciting to be here.
Totally. Yep. Big fan of Dan and Hugh. And you interviewed Hugh too, right?
Yeah, so I interviewed Hugh. So I have a podcast called Trading Secrets, and on the podcast, all we do is talk about where money is made and what industries and wins and losses and dollar amounts, because I think behind those stories are so many lessons as people are kind of lost and stuck. So I had Hugh come on. He told his whole story. One of the coolest stories was when he was taking his final in finance class and realized he was in the money about $724K on a trade, and his professor said, "You show me that you're in the money, that dollar amount, I'll let you out of here and you're going to get an A on this." And he brought up his phone, took his app, showed him, professor said, "Get out of here," and he got his A.
Good for him. So your podcast, it's called Trading Secrets, but it is more generally business-based. Is that correct? Because we're a trading podcast.
Correct. So it's not a trading podcast. The idea behind Trading Secrets is that we get people that you may look up to or industries you're curious about exploring. They trade all the secrets within those industries, where they make the money, how they lost money, the biggest deals they closed. For example, had a Rob Dyrdek on from MTV talking about exactly how much he made per episode, how he negotiated ad placement rights, how he has started X, Y, and Z business and the money made behind it. It's all where money is made in the industries and career navigation associated with those.
Fascinating. What a great idea for a podcast.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's
been going great.
Rob Dyrdek is who I looked up to when I was a young kid. I wanted to be just like him.
Ellis, if you looked up to him then and you haven't heard this podcast with him, I would say
I just wrote it down.
If there's any podcast that I've ever done, and I've had the pleasure of having Gary Vee on and Kevin O'Leary and people from Real Housewives, and I got to interview A-Rod one-on-one, I will tell you the most life-changing podcast I ever had was Rob Dyrdek's podcast, especially when he talks about how he gamifies his life and implements pretty much what consultants did to all of his business. He implemented it into his life to drive happiness. Mind-blowing. Check it out.
We'll link
he's a different
to
breed.
that for sure. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So, I really wanted to have you on because I'm a big Bachelor fan. And then saw your podcast, and I have to say, as much as I respect you and wanted to have you on, Caitlin is my favorite person in Bachelor Nation. So, really, thank you to her for
Yes. Hey, thank you, Caitlin, for being number one. She is awesome, and most people that ever come across the show would absolutely agree with everything you just said, Blaine.
She
a queen in the franchise.
Yeah, she is honest and authentic and was not afraid to be funny and vulnerable and sort of break out of the mold of what you're supposed to she was really a game changer for The Bachelor, in my opinion. First of her kind, and way to just embrace who she is in her most honest sense. Just a big fan of what she did. Just love her.
Yeah, no, I think everything you said is so accurate about her. She has dropped into the most authentic version of herself, and she doesn't care what other people deem as the standard. The standard is who she is, what she feels, and how she kind of navigates her life, and she does it her way, and she's led by no one but her belief and her character, which is really a testament to the person she is and the success she's had.
Absolutely. And her season, the way she sort of let the viewer into the conflict she was feeling, anyway, I've already said it, but I love people who are very authentic to who they are, and she really sets a standard for that. So
100%. Couldn't agree more. And I will pass that message to her.
lucky you.
Yeah.
Do you guys live in Nashville?
We live in Nashville, Tennessee. Yep.
Fantastic. I'm from Atlanta, so big fan of Nashville.
Oh, Nashville's great. I've been here for about 3 years now, and the city is it's just booming. I mean, this cranes in the sky. The growth rate here is next level. And I'll tell you what, if you owned real estate in Nashville, Tennessee 10 years ago, you are living good today.
For sure. Do you guys go to the Ryman?
I don't think we've ever been. Tell me about it.
Isn't the Ryman is, oh my gosh, I hope I'm saying the right thing.
We travel a lot, so it may.
Okay.
You tell me.
It's
I'm
like
gonna Google it.
the music mecca of Nashville. Like when huge artists, it's a very intimate church like building. We're big fans of Fish, funny enough. And Trey Anastasio played there, a solo show, acoustic. It was...
Yeah, the Ryman Auditorium, right. So I'm looking
Yes.
at that now. I've never been. I'm sure Caitlin would know all about it. One that we're very familiar with, and we've been, and Caitlin actually performed Dance with the Stars there, is the Grand Ole Opry, right? That's a classic. But I've never actually been to the Ryman, but I'm going to have to put it on my list.
Put it on your list.
Done.
It's worth it. It's worth it. I will say you sit in actual pews, and by the end your back will hurt. So maybe preemptively, pop a leave or whatever. But
I love that.
It's great.
All right, consider it done.
And before I get into more of your business story, are you from Buffalo?
Yes, born and raised.
Okay, so you are. So I'm a Dogs fan, like the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yes, yeah.
That's my team. And we have had really the last 5 or 6 years like such a rise to, we had like a rebuilding, and then we were gaining traction, and we won the national championship this year. Massive year for the Georgia Bulldogs. And I feel like you are on a very similar trajectory.
Yes.
Building to maybe an ultimate crescendo of hopefully a Super Bowl situation.
I think you're right on, right? You look at the Bulldogs and the competition with Bama and all the other big dogs who always find the way to win. And Georgia always got there, but they couldn't close the deal. That's been the Buffalo, right? That's been the Buffalo Bills. We had 4 Super Bowls we lost. We had some very, very tough playoff losses. This one of last year being one of the most difficult. I mean, we're beating the Kansas City Chiefs. They tie it up with 1 second left. We're ahead. They tie it up, and we don't even get to touch the ball in overtime. Just absolutely devastating, but we're making big plays in the offseason. And I think if there's a time for the Buffalo Bills to pull off what the Georgia Bulldogs did, it's going to be in the next 2-3 years. This is what's going to happen.
I agree.
Yes. I'm so excited to watch. My best friend who I went to Georgia with married a big Bills fan. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the fold now.
Yeah.
And being a couple steps ahead of you, I just want to say, what an exciting time to be a Bills fan.
Yes, we're on the same page there. Send me that good Bulldog energy. You guys have had a year. I need it.
I'm an Eagles fan, so.
I feel your pain too. I mean, but you guys have won before. I don't feel too bad.
Yeah, once, and then just sadness every other time.
True.
So, Jason, were you in the banking industry prior to going on The Bachelor?
Yes, so I graduated with a business administration degree, and after that was in one of their rotational banking programs, and naturally gravitated towards working with the business group. So I worked in strategy at headquarters for a couple years, and then I did some underwriting, and then after underwriting I became a corporate banker. So I was a senior banker working with companies that earned revenues of $100 million and greater. Through that time I got my PMBA, so part-time MBA in accounting and finance from Simon School of Business, and I was the relocation guy. You tell me where to go and when, I'll be there. So I did that route for about 10 years.
Fantastic. And then I've always been kind of interested in how, like, applying or auditioning to go on The Bachelor, how do you sort of work through that with your real life and your job? And you're like, I may be taking a fairly large sabbatical here. Like, can you just walk me through sort of what that was like aligning professionally and, well, I guess it is anyway, you get the question.
Yeah, no, it's such a fair question. And a lot of people that watch any form of reality TV, I think it's something you kind of like pass over. Like, wait a second, these people have like legitimate titles and they're taking 3 months off. One of the things I just wrote, so I just had a book release right here. It just fell, but it's called The Restart Roadmap. And what's fascinating is in the book, I don't know if you guys can see it in that screen, in the book, the memo that I wrote my boss to get approval to leave for a question mark of maybe 1 week, 2-3 months is in the book. And that memo got passed from my boss to my boss to my boss's boss. It ended up going to the president of the bank. And the president of the bank ended up approving me to go on the show. And so I went on the show. And then after being on there for about 3 months of filming, I came right back to work.
And, well, that is... what a nice thing for your company to do.
Yeah, I mean, so I positioned it extremely, like, as the analytical guy that I am, if you need any help in selling via written communication, go check that memo out. But part of what I did was, a lot of people will watch former shows of The Bachelorette to study the show to then give themselves some type of gaming edge when they're in the show. I was watching the shows, literally fast forwarding to the rose ceremonies, counting how many people there were and how many people were gone, and then trying to figure out how long a period that was. Because yes, in the viewership we see it as a week, but it's not that long. And so I created a system of understanding exactly the probability of when I would be back based on how many roses are handed out on a week-to-week basis. And the likelihood of me being gone greater than a month, I think it was, I'll have to check it in the book, I think it's like 84% chance that I would be back within 4 weeks. I had 29 days of PTO already built up. And on top of that, the reason I even got asked to go on the show is for a charity event I did that the bank sponsored. They put money behind it. And so the request was very much like, hey, for 10 years, I've given you guys everything. I've moved a total 4 times, the largest move over 3,000 miles. I have the vacation time. If I go over the vacation time, I'm just asking for a seek of approval. And they said, you go. But if you go, realize there's consequences for what could happen, and good luck. And fortunately, the edit and everything worked out well because I was who I was. And you know what? It ended up being a good bet for them because that summer, fall, and spring, they took advantage of that 3 minutes of fame and had me all over the place in the bank's representation.
I'm fantastic. So you went... I want to ask the question of sort of like, how did being on that show change your life? But I don't even think that's that great of a question because obviously it completely changed your life. So
yeah. I think one thing to say is like, I think a good takeaway. So yeah, going on the show was a decision that everyone in my life had told me not to do, right? Friends, family, colleagues, bosses, like, what are you doing? You got a rocket on your back in corporate America. Why are you going? It was one of the first decisions I just made for myself that was against the approval of so many others. And I did it because I just wanted to. I was like, you know what? I want to give this a shot. Why not? It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I went for it. And so it did turn my life upside down. But I think another question could be too, what were some takeaways from that experience that have like still been instilled on your day-to-day work or that we could take away in professional worlds? And I think one of the big things was I had no phone, no TV, no internet, no music, no family, no friends, none of that for 3 months. And so to be taken away of so much of the noise, I got to really understand myself better than I ever have. Because there's so many things that we go on a day-to-day basis of checking boxes and making sure that we're responding to our texts and our emails and all the requests that come in that we kind of lose focus of who we are as individuals and what got us to where we are. And doing that was so amazing. I would recommend anyone, Do it for 30 minutes. Do it for an hour. Do it for 2 hours. Hell, try it. Good luck. Do it for 24 hours. No phone, no TV, no music, no internet, no music, no outside influence but your brain and your thoughts. You'll be amazed at how much you could take away from it. And in the book, I'll tell you this, there are so many things within the show from, I would say, just positioning and branding and dealing with imposter syndrome and gamifying things that I learned. And those lessons can be applied to any person in any position in any workforce. And in my book, The Restart Roadmap, I lay some of those things out.
So I have ordered many copies of your book.
That's so sweet of you.
So I can't wait to read it. But then also, Alice and I are going to give some away to our trading friends.
Cool. That's so nice of you guys.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to do it. And the gamification of trading is a hot topic and so interesting to me. So if we can somehow make the connection between life, gamification of trading, how you can take those lessons learned through trading and then apply them back to your life and make that sort of a full, or business, in 2020, we had a huge influx of people into day trading.
Sure.
Right? And then people made fortunes, lost fortunes. So much of our listenership is now headed back to work. So how do you take kind of what you learned through your trading journey and then reapply it to your business life? There are some very key takeaways there. And I feel like your book and you and your journey is such a perfect fit for all of that.
It is exactly that, right? It's taking lessons from people that you learn and behind the curtain of things you would have never seen and finding ways to apply it to no matter what you do, whether you are a teacher, a nurse, a business development officer, a CFO, an accountant, anything. And that's exactly what this book has done. It's taken, I've got to see some of the best and brightest, some of the literally the best people at branding and positioning, like a Michael Strahan, behind the scenes of Good Morning America, and boom, when he has his 20 seconds to make an impression, how he's done it. And through these lessons, I've been able to pull so much that people can apply to their day-to-day. And just like trading, when you talk about what's differentiating you, pre-prep, emotional balance through volatility, all these things are things that not only can we take into our business and professional lives, but we can take into how we're managing our personal financial situations and how we're managing personal relationships.
Absolutely. What who in your book did you get the biggest takeaway from?
Ooh, that is such a good question. I mean, there are so many examples out there, but I'm just going to tell you the first one that comes to mind was Barbara Corcoran. And I don't think that this is maybe the best takeaway, but one that I won't forget. Barbara Corcoran, 22 jobs she got fired from by the age of 23. One of the big takeaways for me there is so many people don't allow themselves to take big shots or take big opportunities because of fear. Complacency drives the paralyzed action of not doing things. What's interesting is through her lessons is she said, I didn't care what people thought. Within 22 jobs of being fired from, which most people don't get fired from in an entire lifetime, I got more information about myself and my strengths and what differentiates me through every single one of those lessons. So by 22 years old, I got lessons from failure that most people don't get in 5 lifetimes. And the more information I have, just like a poker player, just like a trader, the more information I have, the better calculated decision I can make so that my next output for what my input in will be greater. And so I think that was such a great lesson. Don't be afraid of failure. Take shots. When you take shots, you get information. Information leads to a better path forward.
I just interviewed my mom who owns a luxury real estate firm here in Atlanta and has built a career and now owns this firm and she's been a great mom, great role model, but Barbara Corcoran obviously is a big, someone I respect so much in just growing up in the real estate world. She's really a badass.
She really is. And I mean, anyone in that world that finds ways to differentiate and be at the top of their game, it's so hyper competitive. There are lessons you could take away from them as it relates to branding, selling, executing. Ryan Serhant's another one. He was one of the, so I was fortunate to get 6 endorsements here from people that I think really exemplified rewiring their paths and then restarting to get where they wanted to be, which is achieve pinnacle greatness. Carly Pierce, Chriselle Staus, who's in Selling Sunset, Rob Gronkowski, Damon John, Erica Nardini, and then Ryan Serhant. So Ryan Serhant's become a friend, and what he's done in the luxury space too is just absolutely remarkable.
I've been a part of her firm for the past 20 years, and real estate has transformed, very much so.
Yes.
In the last 20 years, and it's been it's just been really an incredible ride. So many takeaways there, but I also feel like we're on sort of the precipice of real estate completely changing. So anyway, it's been interesting, but I really respect Barbara for staying so much on the forefront of that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting. I mean, the real estate world is changing, like you said, so drastically. Obviously, with the pandemic, even the commercial space has totally moved in different directions. The residential space has taken off in the last 2 years. We've got interest rates hikes happening. Will there be pullback as we're seeing all type of refinancing dry up? And now you have this whole, I mean, you guys know all about it, like the NFT metaverse real estate game. And there are real estate brokers in the NFT metaverse space that are just killing it. So there's so many moving parts.
so many moving parts. It is, rapidly changing. And, what's next? Because people are paying prices for houses here in Atlanta that have unprecedented prices. And we're, you list a house, you're getting 15, 20, 30 offers over list. Like, that's not sustainable.
Yeah, purchasing power right now is out of control. And my concern is, are we going to have another 2008? Because you look at wage increases. Wage increases are not moving at the same speed as inflation is. But the interest rates have stayed low for so long that the ability to buy has become so easy. And then if people are going to be in their refinancing, and if values don't hold, man, people are going to be in some serious trouble for overspending. And
Totally.
I'm afraid that is on the forefront, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I bought my house 8 years ago. Absolutely love it. Could sell it right now for an insane profit. But then what do? Right? Then I go buy put all that into another house that I'm going to overpay for, and then I lose all that equity. It's scary.
That's the biggest issue right now. Obviously, it makes sense when you're in the money like that to sell, but then what's the opportunity cost of where you go, to your point? And is that worth the price point? I don't know, right? So
I'm not going to get, my family is in the real estate business, and the way that my family grew their wealth is we just made good residential purchases, right? Like, we would buy a house, keep it for several years, and then sell it for a profit. And we had the business too, but that was our own way of making money. So we moved a ton. We just made good investments. So I'm so tempted to take this money, but it's such a hard time. I've decided that I think I'm gonna hold on to it, let it lose a little bit of value, sell it when I could then reinvest it in a good opportunity to try to keep. That's the only way that I know is like a foolproof way to grow your personal wealth, is just to make very good real estate investments. So,
I love it. That is awesome. Well, you got to tell me what moves you make and where you think I should make them.
Yeah, I didn't know you were the secret real estate insider. So
start tweeting all this stuff. I'm gonna be following.
Yeah.
Well, my mom was a real estate agent. Is a real estate agent. My dad was a stockbroker. So it's an interesting pairing.
It's a power combo right there.
Yeah, it was. it was a very good education growing up. So anyway, I've been in real estate for 20 years, and then trying to implement some of the trading strategy. It's been fascinating.
That is so cool. I love it.
Yeah, I didn't.
Safe to say your family's not risk adverse.
No,
like a high risk.
No, we are very comfortable with a very risky investment.
But it's funny, like you talk to like a family whose dad was like in the union, right? It's like, oh, like what, you're gonna go trade stocks or get into real estate. Like, oh, why would you do that? Just like work hard with your hands.
Yeah.
But then you have other families where it's like, yeah, stocks risky, real estate risky. Going on TV shows risky. But you can see that there's success stories that come out of it.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like you mentioned earlier, sometimes you just have to take your shot and just go for it.
For sure. And I think the thing is, too, is like, this is a little bit of a morbid discussion, but I'm going to get into it real quick. Like, on average, we live in the United States as humans till like 78-ish. Okay, so we live till 78-ish. We're adulting for 18 of those years, so we're down to 60. On average, we're retiring at like 62, right? So we'll take 15 years away. You got 45 years on average to make a professional impact, to do something that's greater than you, to teach your daughter or son something that they can pass on to the next generation. And so many of us sit in complacency. We sit in these 9-to-5s. We sit in places that are toxic, so that we're not seeing mobility or getting compensated appropriately, or that we don't have some type of passion or natural aligned skill sets. And you gotta say to yourself, why? Like, I have it's such a short, limited time to do something really, really cool. And while, yes, I understand there's so many different moving parts with so many different situations, the one fact is, on average, you got about 40 to 45 years to work and to do something greater than just clocking in hours. And so that's where I'm extremely passionate about, like, find a way to make a difference. Find a way to achieve your pinnacle performance, because there's only so much time to do so.
Totally. My son is 8 years old and started a YouTube channel, and it's fantastic to watch and be a part of. And at 8 years old, I asked him, like, Oliver, why do you want to do this? And he was like, well, I just want to leave a mark on the world like you're doing with the podcast, Mom.
Aww.
And I was like, if I've done that for him, right? Like, what a thing to teach him. This podcast could fail tomorrow.
Sure.
But if my son understands that idea of making your life mean something and impacting it, like, what a cool thing for people.
And then at 8 years old, he's already came up with an idea, planned an idea, created an idea, executed consistently, and is proud of it. People don't do that in their whole lifetime. And at 8 years old, he's already learned those things. I mean, I think that's such an unbelievable testament to your parenting and his ability to just be like, yeah, I'm going to try it, Mom. And guess what? Maybe this fails and the next thing fails and 40 of them fail. But like at 28, he takes the one shot and he's done it 30 times and boom, it's a monster grand slam.
Totally. I mean, I'm invested in this podcast. I mean, not the YouTube channel. I mean, we're all in on this, and I hope he's the best entrepreneur the world's ever seen. Like, good for him to
awesome.
do it. So, speaking of podcasting, I actually am a little fuzzy on your. Did Caitlin start her podcast first, or you started yours first?
Yeah, so our podcast couldn't be more opposite, but hers started in 2017. I think it was 2017. It's called Off the Vine. And so her whole thing is that it's very, very focused on women empowerment. And she will have a lot of inspiration and comedy tone to it. It's called Off the Vine because they drink wine, they tell confessions. You need a good laugh or a little inspiration. It's a great place to turn. And so she has 2 podcasts that come out a week, Tuesday and Thursday. And so my podcast, we started just a year ago, and it's called Trading Secrets. It's in the business and finance segment, and that's where I explained a little bit, but we'll have all different celebrities from different industries come on and talk about like how they made money in certain areas, dollar amounts they made to the penny, and where they lost money on certain investments or opportunities. And the thesis behind the whole podcast is we need to start talking about how much money we make, because if we do so, we're educating the masses, and if we're educating the masses, we now have more leverage when we go in to negotiate with our bosses or go for the next interview or take on the next opportunity.
Very, very cool. So the podcast obviously has created amazing like business opportunities for you, right? Because now you sit down and talk to these people and create a personal connection.
Yes. So one of the things is when I got off the show, I quickly learned that this influencing game is a massive business and now exceeding, or I think in the $20 billion range for influencers for the market size. And so I quickly learned that and I was like, wait a second, I can learn this business. And so I brought a friend on board and taught him the business, and he's a business development expert. And so then he started an agency. I invested in his agency. I own 50% of his agency. And so now we're doing influencing deals for all different types of talent: actors, musicians, comedians, reality TV stars. But one of the interesting things is I sit down with these people, and now the amount of opportunity that's come from the people that I've met, whether it's influencing deals, collaboration deals, event placement, has been nonstop. And almost every person in some capacity after that podcast, we've had discussions about their private labels, their investments, how we can possibly work with them or represent them. And so there's been so much growth from not only the content that's being shot in the podcast and monetizing that, but the relationships of the people I get to sit down with for 30 minutes to an hour.
Totally. That's been by far the best thing about the podcast. They say, like the biggest thing in business is being able to be at the table. You know what I like? Yeah. With other people who are sort of doing the same things. And I always I'd heard that. And then I recently went to New York and literally was sitting next to Hugh at dinner, plus some of the biggest traders, some of the biggest retail traders out there, at the same dinner. And I was like, oh, the podcast, literally gave me a seat at this table, which is an opportunity that I never would have had. And these are incredibly influential people. And what a cool thing. I'm just living my normal life in Atlanta, and then 1 year later after starting the podcast, I have a voice and a role in Ellis, I would say that we have one of the best trading podcasts, wouldn't you?
I agree. And on your point, is I was in New York City for my birthday with a bunch of dudes I met on the internet. And I actually have a call later today with one of the business guys I met, just talk about business. And it was really cool I was starstruck at first, but once you do it, they're just like you. It's almost like when you meet a big celebrity, it's they're just a regular person.
Yeah.
And I feel like the media kind of warps your mind on what people would be like, depending on what they post and stuff like that. But everyone's just pretty normal. And most people that are at the top, I think, are way more respectful and more willing to help the little guy, I've noticed.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to then also add just a little bit that while I was sitting at that table, I got a DM from the CEO of a trading software company. And he was like, oh, I see you're at dinner with these people. Can I have a meeting with you on Monday? Sure. Had the meeting with him on Monday, and then he hired me as the chief marketing officer for his software company, literally because I was sitting at the table.
I love that. And that's all from just putting your voice out there and your opinion out there. We live in a world where accessibility has never been easier, right? All you got to do, have your opinion, have your thought, have your creative, get it out there. When eyeballs see it, opportunity comes from it. And that's such a great story. And that's amazing. And that's a testament to you aligning a podcast with things that you're naturally talented at and having a voice out there, creating an audience. And then it's the snowball. It doesn't stop moving once you got it building.
It's magical.
Yes, 100%.
It's incredible.
And there's one thing I talk a lot about is taking, I say networking, and people are like, ugh. I'm like, I think of a tag, I'm at a happy hour, nice to meet you. And I think there's so many ways. I have a chapter, it's called Eliminate the Work from Networking. And right there, Blaine, is the exact opposite, the exact definition of how you can eliminate the work from networking. You're doing something you love, something that's inspiring your kids, something that you're naturally talented at, and look at all the things that have come from it.
Just incredible. So your podcast is about a year old,
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is it something that brings you a significant amount of joy?
So much joy. I love it. I mean, it's the tedious stuff really gets annoying. Like the tedious stuff is the finite editing, getting like the descriptions done, but that it comes with every single form of job. Other than that, I love it. I absolutely love it.
You know what it really speaks to is, here's my phone, right? I'm addicted to my phone. We've been on this podcast for 34 minutes. I haven't looked at my phone. It is such a wonderful way to have a face-to-face conversation with someone with no distractions.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
Like you were saying about being on The Bachelor. It's a way to humanly connect with someone for a short amount of time without thinking about other things.
For sure. And I think one of the reasons why podcasts are going to continue to blow up, I mean, if you look at all the metrics, the industry is just off the charts. But I think one of the reasons it's going to continue that growth trajectory is because it's one of the few things you can do in life where you can learn, you can listen, and you could also be multitasking in a world that we kind of need to be multitasking. If you think about it, TikTok and Instagram and Twitter are so consuming. It takes up some, depending on the size of your phone, maybe 2 hands, both eyes, full attentiveness, neck down. You can listen to a podcast, put your earbuds in, and do anything. You could be cleaning your house. You could be working out. There's so many things you could do within this space while learning. You could be on an airplane, all this stuff. And so I think the podcast space is going to continue to just blow up.
For sure. For sure. I wrote a blog for years and years and years, and it's very similar, sort of like you start a blog, you're kind of on the pioneering edge of that, and then everyone has a blog. And I feel like we're kind of there with podcasting.
Yeah, but I don't think that should discourage anyone, right? Like I think I had on the podcast, we had the Total Points guy on. I mean, this is a guy who had no platform, no show, no following, nothing. He just knew credit card points better than anyone, started blogging about it. 2 years later, exited the company for over 8 figures, right? And since then, they've exited again for big dollar amounts, and then the company's valued at massive dollars. This is a guy who's making $75K working in JP Morgan's HR group, scratching by and clawing by, and then just blogged about something he really, really loved and absolutely crushed it. So I think you're right. Everything is oversaturated, but I don't think anyone that's out there that might hear this should let that deter them from just giving it a shot, because there's so much that can come from it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do think your authenticity is like bleeding through on this podcast. And I respect that. That's my number one thing that I respect in people, is just being very like true about who you are. And podcasting is an extraordinary place to just be very authentic.
Totally. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I wish everyone lived a little closer, because when you could do it in person too, that even becomes more magnetic. And so it's a special thing. It's really cool.
Absolutely. Next time I come to Nashville, I'm definitely going to DM you.
Yes.
I'm right.
You
I'm
let
a
me
drive
know.
away.
Yes. Done and done. I love it.
Well, we are sort of reaching the end of our time, and I cannot thank you enough for doing this. I have really enjoyed watching your journey. I'm so happy for your success. I cannot wait to read the book.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It is so sweet, and the support means a lot. It's been a fun journey, and the book it's been doing really good. We're getting a lot of feedback from people. I got an email yesterday from a guy that took some tips and tricks from our negotiation part, and he just got a $10,000 raise. And when you could see that stuff, it's so fulfilling. And then just yesterday, I don't think I've even put this out there, but we just made the Wall Street Journal best-selling list. Was like such a really cool thing.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Incredible.
So it's
incredible.
And this all just came from, I think the whole point is when I originally came up with the Restart Consulting Company, all I did, and your listeners will be blown away by this, but I polled my audience when S&P 500 and Dow Jones were just getting crushed in March 2020 when the pandemic came to fruition. It was on the headline of everywhere, and I just said, guys, be honest with me. Right now, I put you on the spot. can you tell me in 3 to 4 sentences what the S&P 500 means? And over 250,000 people responded to this yes-no poll. And over 91% of them said they could not do it effectively. And so I know finance people hear that and they're like, oh shit, there's no way. But the idea the idea there is that there is a gap in the stuff that we're taught in school and what we have to know. And from that, I built the Restart Consulting Company, which focuses on career navigation and financial literacy. And just from having that group, a book agent saw what we were doing and proactively reached out. I didn't have a book on the radar. That's being fully honest. They saw it and said, hey, what do you think? I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. I think the takeaway from that is like, when you see gaps, when you see problems, if you have an opinion, if you have a thought, just freaking get it out there. You have no idea what can come from it. And from that poll, I can't tell you the business revenue generation and different areas of our business under Restart that have just blown up. We have like a networking group. We have the podcast. We have another book coming. I could go on, and I don't want to bore people, but the idea is like, if you have a thought, just go for it. Get it out there because you have no idea what can come back when eyeballs and discovery happens with what you have to say.
Do you wake up sometimes and just think like, how am I living this life? Like you're on a ride.
It's so funny you said that because one of I have a best friend group that they knock my ass down if I ever think I'm feeling high, right? And we were just on an 8-city, 7-state, 8-day in a row book tour. They said the same thing to me, and what was interesting is I truly was like, no, I don't think. They're like, do you realize you just published a book and you're selling thousands of copies? I'm like, my brain doesn't like go to there. My brain goes like, okay, how do we sell more? How do we make a greater impact? Or can we create a journal with this? Or are there PDF classes? And I think I have this mentality ever since working for myself is like, every day, how am I moving the chains forward? And how am I making sure I accomplish the goal of doing things that are, one, creating impact, but two, never put me in a position where I have to work for someone I don't want to work for, because for so long I did that. And so I don't really take that in as much. I just think like, well, I could be doing something better. I know I could do more. I know I could get greater output. So, yeah.
Now, how does that sort of parallel up to imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Because I know you speak about that in your book.
Well, yeah, well, over 70% of people experience imposter syndrome, right? If anyone,
I would think it would be higher.
Yeah, it probably is. Only 70% of people. Oh, there's Pino. You saying hi, baby?
Hi!
Do you want to say hi?
Hi.
Do you see?
Hi, honey.
We're talking about finance and careers. What do you think about that? She's like, man, I don't know, but I'm hungry.
Guys,
Yeah,
we
looks
have a real celebrity on the screen now.
Legit, the star of the family.
It's been nice to know you, but let's see the real celeb here.
It is the Pinot Grigio. Can you show him how to shake?
Hi, honey.
Now, you want to talk about a restart story? This guy was in the streets of South Korea, and now he's just living the dream.
We should ask him about waking up, pinching himself.
Pinching himself. I'll tell you what, he's really living the dream. But yeah, so all good stuff.
Oh my goodness, those eyes.
He's a beauty, eh? He's a beauty. He's such a good boy. Yeah, story with these guys is there's a group called Bunny's Buddies out there, and what they do is they take dogs that are in South Korean kill shelters, and they make sure that they're found in foster families and then adopted. So if you are an abandoned dog, or a dog that is left astray, you go to a what they call as kill shelters, and you have 10 days to be rescued. If you're not rescued, they go to, I know this is like extremely tough to hear, they go to slaughter farms. So this little guy, he was in a kill shelter with his brother, and they both got fostered, and we have both of them here. And it's fortunately, like, he was a little he had a nutritional he just was malnutrition. He didn't have any form of nutrition, which was easily fixed. His brother had a broken hip because when he was in the streets he was actually kicked, so he needed surgery. But they're both healthy and happy now, and God, they show just as much, they give us just as much love as we give them, and they're just unbelievable people. So check out Bunny's Buddies, an organization that's just really incredible.
Perfect. We'll add a link to that.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh, he's perfect.
So many good plugs. I know I'm doing my afternoon today. I must say, Rob Dyrdek podcast literally. After
I'm not
this.
kidding. Listen, especially like towards the end of it. Oh my God, it's nuts. I have all my buddies. They're like, all right, Jay, I'm not gonna listen to every one of your bullshit. Give me one. I'm like, go to Rob Dyrdek. You must listen to the end. They all call me after like, that was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I don't have a single IRL friend who listens to this podcast. They're like, we hear enough of you. Speaking of plugs, please will you plug your interior designer?
So our interior designer, I'd have to go to Caitlin on that.
Okay.
I don't know who it is. I have no idea. There's always people here working on something here. I have no idea. That's her thing.
You guys have the best interior design. It's cool. It's very cool.
That is awesome. I think she usually gets different people to do different things. But I would honestly have to refer to Caitlin Bristow on that one.
All right. Well, if you find out, let me know.
I will.
Because
I will.
It's a great vibe. I actually wanted, for a while, I wanted to send you guys a painting. I'm an artist. I feel like it would look good in your dining room, I think, is... Anyway, you let me know if you want it, and I'll send it over, because...
Yeah. Can you paint, like, if I gave you a image, could you paint it?
I'm not that kind of artist.
Okay, well, I'd love to see your work. The older I get, the more I'm, like, really, really getting into art. And I just think it's, like, so beautiful. And I don't know why it's coming with age, but the older I get, the more I'm just, like, fascinated by it.
Yeah, it's incredible, and especially this day and age with digital NFTs and stuff, to hold something in your hand or hang it on your wall is, it's a special...
It's precious. Thing. Is that your work behind you there?
No, but I will. This is, that's mine. Ooh, nope. Oh, the camera.
Going crazy
Yeah.
with the camera.
Yeah. So they're
that's cool.
Abstract. And
yeah, that's really cool. I love that.
Anyway, yeah, that is just a tapestry. I'm trying to soundproof the room. I should put one of my own. Oh, here's another one while I have you.
Yeah.
This.
Oh, cool. I like it.
Yeah.
My dad was an artist, so I told Blaine that, and then we became friends ever since.
Wow. Hey, see?
It's very rare you meet like a career artist nowadays. I feel like they kind of fall off.
I know.
When you meet someone who has like a following and like is really passionate about it, it just hits different.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
For sure. It's been interesting because I had a pretty big name in the painting art space, and so like my Instagram was great, and then I was like, I'm gonna get into trading, and like to try to take my Instagram following to Twitter doesn't work.
Yeah. Bringing different people over to different social platforms, especially when you have different niches, is quite almost impossible.
Yeah, I was like, this is gonna be so easy.
Oh,
These art people are gonna love the market. They don't.
They don't.
No.
I do have a question. Now that the pandemic's kind of going over, what do you think the reason is people don't want to go back to work? Like you mentioned how people don't want to work for like a boss they don't like. Like, what do you think's driving? Do you think people just had time to be by themselves and just kind of realize like this isn't for me? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think what happened was people had the opportunity to slow down for a second and start to see the world around them. And I think we live in a world where there's so many deliverables and so many things that we have to do. Like kind of I mentioned before, the Bachelorette, you don't really take time to focus on yourself. And I think one, there's like a huge health scare. So like people are concerned about like how long is life? And then World War III have like minor World War III. And I think people are just more concerned ever with like, this is shorter than we expected and it could be gone tomorrow. And they had a second to hit pause. And then they started to get comfortable like, wait, I'm with my family more, or I'm at home more, or wait, I can do a lot more with my health when I'm not stuck in traffic for 2 hours. I could actually like work out and then be on a call and still be as productive. Or actually my output was better than it was when I was in an office because I wasn't busy gossiping about my weekends or, you know, the one admin who is cheating on their husband or something. Like I'm literally making this up. And I think what happened is people are like, time is more precious than we thought it was, and they got more of an appreciation for that. And then we've seen it, right? 2021, and yes, there's a variety of reasons why, but over 47 million people voluntarily left their jobs. And so there's definitely a connection with what's happening with people in career navigation and what was happening prior and what they want out of their career. And I also think now more than ever, there's so many ways to monetize entrepreneurship. I mean, we could do 8 podcasts on different things people could do if they have an idea. And so I think that coupled with just the way things have changed, I think things changed in that 2 period of time. What would have been like an 8-year period of time because of the fact we were all at home and so involved with technology and exploring other things. So I think it's a culmination of all that, honestly.
So you think that personal growth people are experiencing would have happened regardless, and this just kind of sped things up?
I think it would have happened at a slower rate than it would have. I think what happened, what we saw in 2 years in all forms, I think would have taken about 8 years, 6 to 8 years to actually complete. Even the acceleration of and gravitation towards the NFT space and the metaverse, I think all of that was accelerated by the fact that for so long we were sitting around trying to find hobbies and see what's next and how we can connect in different ways than seeing each other eye to eye, face to face, handshake to handshake.
Awesome. The reason I asked that because I think the title of your book is Restart.
Yeah,
right?
It's called the Restart Roadmap. Rewire and reset your career. It's very, very correlated.
Perfect timing with the book, I must say, because I think a lot of people are going through it. So.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Great question, Ellis.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, you are refreshing and wonderful, and I'm just so glad to meet you.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Appreciate your time.
And thank you so much for having us. And I know that the guy I work with, that I own that agency, he had told me there was some scheduling issues and some was on his end. And so wanted to apologize for any of those scheduling issues that did occur. But it's a pleasure to meet you guys. And thank you so much for having me. And thank you for supporting the book. That really does mean a lot. So thank you for that.
Oh, we're going to go crazy on Twitter, don't you?
Yes, you got
Crazy.
Exactly. I'll retweet.
Well, have a fantastic Good Friday, Easter weekend, and I can't wait to watch your continued success.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go feed this boy. I think he's a little hungry, and I appreciate your time, guys. Have a great weekend, and enjoy the holiday weekend.
By accessing this podcast, you acknowledge that the Penny Lane podcast makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional or financial advice. Unless specifically stated otherwise, the Penny Lane podcast does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement. The third-party materials or content of any third-party site referenced in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions, standards, or policies of the Penny Lane podcast. The Penny Lane podcast assumes no responsibility or liability for the accuracy or completeness of the content contained in third-party materials or on third-party sites referenced in this podcast, or the compliance with applicable laws of such materials and or links referenced herein.